A Tranquil Journey, an adult bedtime story. In the quaint coastal town of Serenity Cove, where the gentle lapping of waves against the shore created a constant, soothing rhythm, lived a man named Thomas. At 35, Thomas had recently moved to this peaceful hamlet, seeking respite from the frenetic pace of city life that had left him perpetually exhausted and unable to find true rest. His cottage, a cozy structure of weathered wood and large windows, sat atop a small hill overlooking the vast expanse of the ocean. Each evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in soft hues of pink and orange, Thomas would sit on his porch, breathing in the salt-tinged air and feeling the day's tensions slowly ebb away. On this particular night, as the first stars began to twinkle in the deepening twilight, Thomas decided to take a leisurely stroll along the beach. The sand, still warm from the day's sunshine, cushioned his bare feet as he walked. The rhythmic sound of the waves and the occasional cry of a distant seagull created a natural lullaby, inviting relaxation with each step. As he wandered, Thomas's mind drifted to the journey that had brought him here. He remembered the sleepless nights in the city, the constant hum of traffic, and the never-ending stream of notifications from his phone. Here, in Serenity Cove, time seemed to move at a different pace. The urgency that had once defined his days had melted away, replaced by a gentle flow of moments, each to be savored and appreciated. Lost in thought, Thomas hardly noticed as the beach gave way to a hidden cove, sheltered by towering cliffs on either side. The water here was calm, almost mirror-like, reflecting the star-studded sky above. He paused, taking in the serene beauty of the scene before him. As he stood there, breathing deeply and feeling more at peace than he had in years, Thomas noticed something unusual. A soft, blue glow emanated from a small cave at the base of one of the cliffs. Curiosity piqued, he approached slowly, the sand cool and damp beneath his feet. The cave entrance was just tall enough for Thomas to enter without stooping. As his eyes adjusted to the dim light, he gasped in wonder. The walls of the cave were lined with bioluminescent algae, casting a gentle, ethereal glow throughout the space. It was as if he had stepped into a dream world, far removed from the worries and cares of everyday life. In the center of the cave stood a small, crystal-clear pool. The water was so still it looked almost solid, like a sheet of glass reflecting the glowing walls. Thomas knelt beside it, gazing into its depths. As he did so, he felt a profound sense of calm wash over him, as if the pool itself was radiating tranquility. Without fully understanding why, Thomas reached out and gently touched the surface of the water with his fingertips. The moment he did so, ripples spread outward, not just across the pool, but seemingly through the air around him. The cave shimmered, and Thomas felt a curious sensation, as if he were floating. When the ripples subsided, Thomas found himself in a vast, open meadow. The night sky stretched endlessly above him, filled with more stars than he had ever seen. The grass beneath him was soft and cool, swaying gently in a breeze he could barely feel. In the distance, he could hear the faint tinkling of wind chimes and the soft murmur of a stream. As Thomas took in his surroundings, he realized that he felt no fear or confusion at this sudden change. Instead, a deep sense of peace had settled over him, as if he had finally arrived at a place he had always been meant to find. He began to walk through the meadow, each step feeling lighter than the last. The grass seemed to part before him, creating a natural path. As he walked, Thomas noticed that with each breath, he felt more and more relaxed. It was as if each inhalation drew in pure serenity, while each exhalation released any lingering tension or worry. After what could have been minutes or hours, time seemed to have little meaning in this place. Thomas came upon a small copse of trees. They were unlike any he had ever seen before, with silvery bark that seemed to shimmer in the starlight and leaves that emitted a soft phosphorescent glow. At the center of the copse was an ancient oak tree, its massive trunk speaking of centuries of growth. Nestled in its roots was a small, crystal-clear spring, bubbling up from deep within the earth. The water caught the light from the glowing leaves above, creating dancing patterns on the surrounding trees. Thomas sat down beside the spring, leaning back against the sturdy trunk of the oak. He closed his eyes, listening to the gentle burbling of the water and feeling the cool bark against his back. In that moment, he felt more at peace than he ever had before. As he sat there, Thomas began to reflect on his life. He thought about the choices that had led him to Serenity Cove, the stresses he had left behind, and the new path he was forging. In this tranquil space, free from distractions and the constant noise of the modern world, he found clarity. He realized that so much of his previous anxiety and sleeplessness had come from a fear of missing out, of not doing enough, of not being enough. But here, in this mystical meadow, those fears seemed trivial and far away. He understood now that true fulfillment came not from constant activity and achievement, but from moments of stillness and appreciation. As this realization washed over him, Thomas felt as if a great weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He breathed deeply, filling his lungs with the crisp, clean air of the meadow. With each breath, he felt more and more relaxed, more at peace with himself and his place in the world. The gentle sound of the spring seemed to be whispering to him, reminding him of the importance of flow in life. Just as the water moved effortlessly from its source, through the earth, and up into the spring, so too could he learn to move through life with grace and ease. Thomas opened his eyes, gazing up at the star-filled sky through the glowing canopy above. He felt a deep connection to everything around him. The ancient oak at his back, the cool earth beneath him, the twinkling stars overhead. In that moment, he understood that he was a part of something much larger than himself, a vast and beautiful universe full of wonder and possibility. As he sat there, lost in contemplation, Thomas noticed a soft light beginning to grow on the horizon. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the sky began to lighten. The stars, rather than disappearing, seemed to gently fade into the growing dawn, as if they were being absorbed into the fabric of the brightening sky. The meadow around him began to stir as well. Flowers that had been closed in the night slowly unfurled their petals, reaching towards the coming sun. The grass, which had appeared silver in the starlight, now revealed a palette of soft greens and golds. The leaves of the glowing trees dimmed, their bioluminescence giving way to the natural vibrancy of daylight. As the sun peeked over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, Thomas felt a renewed sense of energy and purpose. The peace he had found in the night didn't disappear with the coming of day. Instead, it settled deep within him, a wellspring of calm he could draw upon whenever he needed. He stood up, stretching his arms towards the sky, feeling every muscle in his body awaken. The oak tree behind him seemed to creak softly, as if wishing him well. The spring burbled a little more energetically, its waters catching the first rays of sunlight and scattering them in a dazzling display. Thomas began to walk back through the meadow, which now bustled with the activity of a new day. Butterflies fluttered from flower to flower, their wings catching the sunlight. Bees hummed busily, gathering nectar. In the distance, he could hear the melodious songs of awakening birds. As he walked, Thomas reflected on the night's journey. He knew that when he returned to his daily life, there would still be challenges to face and tasks to complete. But he also knew that he now carried within him a sanctuary of peace, a quiet meadow under a starry sky that he could return to in his mind whenever life became overwhelming. The path through the meadow led him back to the shimmering cave. As he approached, he could see that the bioluminescent algae were now dormant, their soft glow replaced by the warm light of the rising sun reflecting off the cave walls. The pool in the center was still there, its surface now dancing with the patterns of sunlight filtering through the cave entrance. Thomas knelt beside the pool once more, gazing into its depths. He saw his own reflection, but it seemed somehow different, calmer, more centered, with a quiet strength in his eyes that hadn't been there before. He smiled, grateful for the journey and the lessons it had brought. Reaching out, he touched the surface of the pool again. Just as before, ripples spread out from his fingertips, shimmering through the air around him. The cave seemed to blur and shift, and Thomas felt that curious floating sensation once more. When the ripples subsided, Thomas found himself back on the beach of Serenity Cove. The sun was just cresting the horizon, casting a warm glow over the sand and sea. He took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the salt-tinged air, and felt profoundly at peace. As he walked back towards his cottage, Thomas knew that his life had changed. The anxiety and restlessness that had plagued him for so long had been replaced by a deep, abiding sense of tranquility. He carried the meadow, the ancient oak, and the star-filled sky within him now, a personal oasis of calm he could access whenever he needed. Reaching his porch, Thomas paused to look out over the ocean once more. The water sparkled in the morning light, waves gently lapping at the shore. He smiled, feeling truly at home for the first time in years. Inside his cottage, Thomas prepared for the day ahead. But unlike before, there was no rush, no sense of urgency. He moved with purpose, but also with mindfulness, fully present in each moment. As he made his morning coffee, he took the time to appreciate the rich aroma filling the kitchen. While eating breakfast, he savored each bite, grateful for the nourishment it provided. As the day progressed, Thomas found himself approaching his tasks with a new perspective. The work that had once seemed overwhelming now felt manageable. He took regular breaks to step outside, breathe deeply, and reconnect with the sense of peace he had found in the night. In the afternoon, Thomas decided to explore more of Serenity Cove. He walked through the small town, noticing details he had overlooked before. The cheerful window boxes full of flowers, the friendly nods of passing neighbors, the way the sunlight played on the leaves of the trees lining the streets. He found himself in a small park, where an old man was feeding pigeons on a bench. The man looked up as Thomas approached, his weathered face creasing into a warm smile. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" he said, his voice as warm and comforting as a favorite sweater. Thomas sat down beside him, feeling no need to rush off or check his phone. "It really is," he replied, watching as the pigeons pecked at the breadcrumbs scattered on the ground. The old man nodded sagely. "You know," he said, "I've lived here all my life, and I've found that there's magic in this place. Not the flashy kind you see in movies, but the quiet kind. The kind that sneaks up on you and changes you when you're not looking." Thomas thought about his experience in the cave and the meadow. "I think I know what you mean," he said softly. The old man's eyes twinkled. "I thought you might. You've got that look about you, like you've seen beyond the veil and come back wiser for it." He tossed another handful of breadcrumbs to the eager pigeons. "The trick is to hold on to that wisdom, to not let the noise of the world drown it out." They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching the pigeons and enjoying the warm afternoon sun. Thomas felt a deep sense of connection, not just to the old man beside him, but to the entire town, to the earth beneath his feet, and the sky above. As the sun began to dip towards the horizon, Thomas bid farewell to his new friend and made his way back to his cottage. The walk home was filled with a sense of contentment, each step feeling like a small celebration of life. That evening, as he sat on his porch watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant hues, Thomas reflected on the profound change he felt within himself. The persistent anxiety that had been his constant companion for so long was now just a distant memory. In its place was a deep well of calm, a sense of being fully present in each moment. He thought about the magical meadow, the ancient oak, and the star-filled sky. While he knew he might never physically return to that place, he had brought a piece of it back with him. It lived now in his heart, a sanctuary he could visit whenever he needed to reconnect with that sense of peace and wonder. As night fell and the first stars began to appear, Thomas prepared for bed. His bedtime routine, once a rushed affair born of exhaustion, was now a gentle winding down, a transition from the activities of the day to the restfulness of night. He took a warm bath, adding a few drops of lavender oil to the water. As he soaked, he focused on his breathing, feeling the tension in his muscles melting away. The scent of lavender filled the air, further enhancing his sense of relaxation. After his bath, Thomas brewed a cup of chamomile tea. He sat by the window, sipping slowly and gazing out at the moonlit ocean. The rhythmic sound of the waves served as a natural lullaby, gently easing him towards sleep. When he finally lay down in bed, Thomas felt none of the restlessness that had plagued him for so long. Instead, there was only a deep sense of peace and contentment. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and allowed himself to sink into the comfort of his bed. As he drifted off to sleep, Thomas found himself once again in the magical meadow. But this time, he knew he was dreaming. The grass was soft beneath his feet, the star-filled sky stretching endlessly above him. He walked slowly through the meadow, every step bringing him deeper into a state of profound relaxation. In his dream, Thomas returned to the ancient oak tree and the crystal-clear spring. He sat down, leaning against the sturdy trunk, and closed his eyes. The gentle burbling of the spring and the soft rustling of leaves in the breeze created a soothing melody that seemed to resonate with his very soul. As he sat there, Thomas felt as if he were dissolving into the peaceful energy of the meadow. The boundaries between himself and his surroundings blurred, until he was no longer just in the meadow, but was a part of it. He was the grass swaying in the breeze, the stars twinkling in the sky, the water bubbling up from the spring. In this state of oneness, Thomas found a level of peace he had never known before. All thoughts of past and future faded away, leaving only the perfect stillness of the present moment. He floated in this sea of tranquility, perfectly at ease, perfectly at peace. As the night progressed, Thomas's dreams shifted and changed, but the underlying sense of serenity remained. He wandered through landscapes of incredible beauty, lush forests where every leaf seemed to glow with an inner light, vast deserts where the sand shimmered like stardust, deep oceans where he could breathe freely and swim alongside gentle giants of the sea. Throughout it all, Thomas remained in a state of calm alertness, fully present in each moment of his dream journey. He marveled at the wonders around him, his heart filled with gratitude and awe. As dawn approached in the waking world, Thomas's dream began to gently fade. The magical landscape slowly dissolved, replaced by a soft, warm light. He found himself back in the meadow, standing beside the ancient oak tree. The tree seemed to whisper to him, its leaves rustling in a breeze he couldn't feel. Though he couldn't make out words, Thomas understood the message. The peace he had found was not confined to his dreams or to this magical place. It was within him always, a wellspring he could draw upon at any time. With this understanding, Thomas felt himself rising slowly towards wakefulness. The transition was gentle, a soft shift from one state of being to another. As he opened his eyes, the sense of peace from his dream remained, suffusing his body and mind with a profound sense of well-being. Sunlight streamed through the curtains as Thomas slowly opened his eyes. For a moment, he lay perfectly still, savoring the lingering sense of peace from his dream. The sound of waves gently lapping at the shore drifted through his open window, a soothing reminder of where he was. As he gradually became more aware of his surroundings, Thomas realized something profound had changed. The weight of anxiety that had been his constant companion for so long was gone. In its place was a deep, abiding sense of calm and contentment. He sat up slowly, stretching his arms above his head and feeling every muscle in his body awaken. The morning light painted his room in soft, warm hues, and Thomas took a moment to truly appreciate the beauty of this simple moment. With unhurried movements, he got out of bed and walked to the window. Opening the curtains fully, he was greeted by the breathtaking sight of the sun rising over the ocean. The water sparkled like a sea of diamonds, and a gentle breeze carried the salt-tinged air into his room. Thomas closed his eyes and took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the fresh morning air. As he exhaled, he felt as if he was releasing the last remnants of his old, anxious self. With each breath, he felt more grounded, more present, more alive. Opening his eyes, Thomas smiled at the world outside his window. The day ahead beckoned, full of possibility and promise. But unlike before, when the thought of a new day might have filled him with dread or anxiety, now he felt only excitement and curiosity about what it might bring. He began his morning routine, but everything felt different now. Each action was infused with a sense of mindfulness and appreciation. As he brewed his coffee, he savored the rich aroma filling his kitchen. While preparing his breakfast, he took the time to appreciate the colors and textures of the fresh fruits and whole grains on his plate. After breakfast, Thomas decided to take a walk along the beach. The sand was cool beneath his feet, and the rhythmic sound of the waves created a natural meditation. As he walked, he reflected on the journey that had brought him to this point. He thought about the magical cave and the starlit meadow, the ancient oak tree and the crystal-clear spring. While he knew these experiences had been extraordinary, he also understood that the real magic lay not in those places, but within himself. The peace he had found was not something external, but a part of him that had always been there, waiting to be discovered. As he continued his walk, Thomas encountered other early risers, joggers, dog walkers, and fellow beach strollers. He exchanged smiles and good mornings with each of them, feeling a warm sense of connection to this community he now called home. Returning to his cottage, Thomas felt energized and ready to face the day. He sat down at his desk, ready to tackle some work projects that he had been putting off. To his surprise, tasks that had once seemed daunting now felt manageable. He worked steadily, taking regular breaks to stretch, breathe deeply, and reconnect with the sense of calm he had cultivated. As the day progressed, Thomas found himself handling minor setbacks and frustrations with a new level of grace and ease. When a client called with a last-minute request, instead of feeling stressed, he calmly assessed the situation and found a solution that worked for everyone. When his computer briefly malfunctioned, he used the time it took to restart as an opportunity to practice some deep breathing exercises. In the afternoon, Thomas decided to explore more of Serenity Cove. He wandered through the small town, noticing details he had overlooked before. The cheerful window boxes full of flowers, the friendly nods of passing neighbors, the way sunlight played on the leaves of trees lining the streets. He found himself in a small local bookshop, its shelves lined with a carefully curated selection of books. The owner, a kind-faced woman with silver hair, greeted him warmly. They fell into an easy conversation about books and life in Serenity Cove. "You know," she said, her eyes twinkling, "there's something special about this place. It has a way of helping people find what they're really looking for, even if they didn't know they were searching." Thomas nodded, thinking of his own transformative experience. "I think I know exactly what you mean," he replied with a smile. As evening approached, Thomas made his way back to his cottage. He prepared a simple but nourishing dinner, eating mindfully and appreciating each flavor. After dinner, he sat on his porch, watching as the sun began to set over the ocean. The sky transformed into a canvas of vibrant colors, deep oranges, soft pinks, and rich purples, all blending together in a breathtaking display. Thomas sat in quiet contemplation, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for this moment, for this day, for this life. As darkness fell and the first stars began to appear in the sky, Thomas prepared for bed. His evening routine, once a rushed affair born of exhaustion, was now a gentle winding down, a transition from the activities of the day to the restfulness of night. He took a warm bath, adding a few drops of lavender oil to the water. As he soaked, he focused on his breathing, feeling any remaining tension in his muscles melting away. The scent of lavender filled the air, further enhancing his sense of relaxation. After his bath, Thomas brewed a cup of chamomile tea. He sat by the window, sipping slowly and gazing out at the moonlit ocean. The rhythmic sound of the waves served as a natural lullaby, gently easing him towards sleep. When he finally lay down in bed, Thomas felt a deep sense of contentment. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and allowed himself to sink into the comfort of his bed. As he drifted off to sleep, he knew that whatever dreams might come, whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, he was ready. He had found his inner peace, his true self, and nothing could take that away. In that moment, lying in the quiet darkness of his bedroom in Serenity Cove, Thomas was truly, deeply happy. And as sleep gently embraced him, a small smile played on his lips, the smile of a man who had found his way home.